Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spin Rack, and today I'm also here with.
Calvin Ellis, ready to rock.
We're talking about the new projects announced under the James Gunn banner, and there are many, but some of them will not see the light of day until in a couple of years. So since we're at it's only in January, it'll definitely be a couple of years before you see some of this other stuff. But at the same time, oh man, why does it go to there? Let's see if I can get back to where I wanted to be. But yeah, but basically they announced a number of things. I believe it's 8 things that they announced, and we're going to talk about them. Hold on. Let's see if I can get this back to where we're supposed to be. Yes. Here we go. Okay. Wake up. Sorry for the delay. It's YouTube. All right. Ready, set. All right. So we're at AV Club, right? And let's see if you can see us a little better on this thing. There we go. Right. So feels like 8 things that are here. And the first thing announced, outside of the stuff that's coming out like Shazam, Flash, and Shazam in March, Flash in June, Blue Beetle on the 18th, and Aquaman at the end of the year, and some other stuff that's coming. They already see, you can see there, they have Superman singing the Batman Part 2. Where's this stuff? Where did I lose most of my cool stuff? All right, so here, the first thing is the Creature Commandos TV show. All right, I believe this is animated. It'll be all written by James Gunn. Yep, animated series already in production. It's going to be for TV, HBO Max. What do you say, sir?
That's right up James. That's right up his alley. Creature Commandos. That looks like it was tailor made for him. He can have a whole bunch of fun with it, do all of the Peacemaker stuff that he wants with that, and be no problem. What I want to see is if he could actually pull off that hat trick and get these guys from animation to to the screen. I don't. I mean, I would love to see if he could get it from animation to TV to the screen that way, because then you really have everything interconnected. Which is one of the reasons why I actually did like what I heard from him, because he wasn't just talking about getting the films connected, but like the entire DC universe connected. I was like, really? All aspects of it? That would be cool.
I don't know if that's happening, but I mean, maybe.
That's what he said.
So we have Waller TV, so that might be connected.
She's easy.
Well, there's some other stuff that's in here that's going to be a little different, but we got her. Obviously, you have a name in there, so you're not gonna why waste it? She's been around for a long time. Why not utilize her? So we got a Amanda Waller project. Viola killing it, as killing it always. Except for this project, she hasn't really been able to do her stuff. So maybe we'll see something on the level of how to get away with plot device. I mean, how to get away with murder. Let's move on. Superman Legacy film. All right. So this is a film that they're doing. Henry Cable will not be playing the Man of Steel with a full reboot. They're saying having some Krypton stuff in there and having some of his stuff in obviously in Kansas. Now it was initially announced, or just sort of passively announced by Chris McQuarrie. He hinted, because everyone hinted that it was going to be for tomorrow, but he hinted that his project was going to be. If you wanted to see, Superman versus Brainiac, I was like, ah, oh, damn it. Well, DC seemingly wanted to have they had James Gunn in mind, so it seems like that's where they wanted to go. So, any thoughts on this so far on the Superman?
Uh, I don't know what they're going to do with it. I mean, the title Superman Legacy is intriguing, but I'll be honest, I don't know what they're going to do with it. The Superman that everybody, in terms of making a film
Mm-hmm.
and in terms of the gold standard, are the first two Donner films. And nobody's been able to really do anything to go further than that. They either go back to it, they run away from it, do something completely, says something completely contrary to it. So of course, I like the fact that he says that the DC universe is going to start with this film. Officially starts with the legacy, Superman legacy. That's what I've always proposed. That if you can't get Superman right, how do you get the rest of this universe right when it's really centered on him? It's like going to the Marvel universe and you can't get Spider-Man right. You're going to have trouble with all the other characters. This should be a guy that you get right without any issue.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't know what the story is. I only know that James Gunn is writing it. I don't know what the story is. I don't know who's directing it. And those are things that keep me from jumping up and down for joy. I mean, there are Superman fans, they don't care. As long as they get a Superman film, they're happy. It could suck. They'll be back for the next one. But, Superman has been like, even though they've been making films, he's sort of been in development hell since 1986.
Mm-hmm.
No clear direction, no. I mean, the last person was Donner, who had a clear idea of what to do for this character, and then no desire to really work it like a franchise. Well, we're going to make 3 films. We have an idea of what we want to do with this character, and we know this character is bankable, as opposed to doing a Batman film. So yes, I am intrigued and more optimistic than I would like to admit based on what I heard. But I'm trying to have a great dose of realism in that there's still a lot of stuff I don't know, and I guess I'll be a little bit more comfortable once we see who's cast to play the role.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think everyone, since they had some stacks of Morrison stuff, and you'll see more stuff seemingly related to him here. People just
God,
assume it's going to be All Star Superman. That's what the people assume it's going to be without
don't
knowing.
do
Hmm?
no, I said don't do All Star Superman. Don't do that. Please don't do that.
Well, that's what people are immediately saying, because it's like you want to say, you say what you like. So whatever you like, you the first thing. And since he's a name, and you see some other stuff, they're like, hey, see, there's Krypton and some stuff in the his early days. All Star Superman. What is All Star Superman? Like a Jeopardy question, but they got that coming up. And then we have Lantern. Since I mentioned Morrison, we're gonna have the TV show of the Green Lantern Corps,
The
right?
moment the moment you say All Star Superman, that really gets me nervous because that is a story that works because of all the legacy that you have of Superman in the comics.
Yes.
So when you're coming into it, there's a whole bunch of stuff that he can play around with because there's so much prior knowledge that most of the readership would bring. It's cool. And then for somebody who's not necessarily the biggest Superman fan, it's even cooler because it dispels a lot of the preconceived notions that you would have had. But you can't do that with the films because
Well, yeah.
built up, never built up, that sort of legacy towards it. So if you're gonna go, and then All Star Superman also is kind of a cheat because it's effectively the last Superman story. So it's another death of Superman, if you will.
Well, those are all the things which I would say, because even the thing that everyone thinks is the most brilliant is the opening, where it's just 4 panels. Like I wouldn't want anyone to do anything like Man of Steel with Jor-El. But I think for the audience, I think the way Superman 2 had to quickly go through, but this is a whole new thing, so you might want to have like not as maybe not as long as Donner did in there, but yeah, I don't think you can just do. I mean, I guess you can call on it. You could call on. You know what? It's 50-50. You're doing a new thing. Maybe you can skate away like the way the Marvel Universe did, and they skated away from Spider-Man's origin, even though they did kind of do a different style of origin, like the James Bond type of origin. And they say, hey, he's here, but we're going to develop him to get to the power and responsibility later type of thing. But going to this is going to be like Morrison's procedural. It's going to be a mystery. They're looking out in space. So ultimately, for me, I think, well, it's a TV show, so you can play this out. One of the cool things about the Green Lantern, I think what Marvel kind of fixed when they did cosmic type of stories, is remembering that you have to bring these guys home to Earth from time to time. And that's the thing that I think DC, well, they imaginative and try to go to a sense of wonder. You always have to try to remember what Marvel kind of did was say, hey, they want the space stuff, but they want some Earth stuff. So mix it up as much as you can. Like you can spend like 12 you can 12 issues, but at some point bring Thor home, have him fight the absorbing man, send him back out in space, and who's that? The Tananile and that sort of all that stuff, and the high evolutionary and all that crazy stuff that came later after that. So ultimately, this is going to try to draw from what Morrison was doing, and ultimately, we'll see how it goes. It could just be fun. So, what are your thoughts?
I, I don't know. I thought they would have gotten this out sooner, but there's been all this stuff behind the scenes that I still don't know about. I haven't like some understanding, but the biggest thing was the Snyder regime and trying to get away from that, trying to flush that out. But that was just a really long process. But I thought they would have gotten this out sooner, and I thought this was a great way to introduce other characters. The fact, that they want to do. I think it's a smart play to treat it like a procedural cop show, as the Green Lanterns are space cops. That's what they are, on a much higher level, where you got one guy and he's patrolling a whole sector of space, which is relative. It doesn't have to be, not necessarily a densely populated area,
Uh-huh.
if it comes down to that, but that they're going to treat it like that. So they actually have a trophy and a theme that they're going to work with in terms of this. So, we can get some Hill Street Blues type episodes, if you will. So
or top 10 or something like that.
yeah, and it should. The whole cop show dynamic has worked for longer than I can remember. So it's a smart play. It has, and up to this point, it hasn't been done. You don't have any Marvel or DC character, for that matter, that's been brought to the screen, or the TV, where they've worked this particular angle with it. And so, you do it right. A whole bunch of people, oh, this is revolutionary, and this, that, and the other. You breathe new life, but that's what Green Lantern actually is. So, it that right there, I think, is a really good move. Though I am still scratching my head as to why this didn't get out earlier. Like, what kept it from getting out earlier?
Well, they also have to remember they can't really fall to the old school TV like the Star Wars or even Lost in Space where you walk on the desert, a Star Trek type of deal. You have to keep him kind of in the high tech type of world, which is going to cost you some money. So, place your bets right, as close as you can. And also, you have to remember that they created an amazing Sinestro in Mark Strong, who also plays what's it Savannah in the Shazam movies. So they need to kind of step their game up and get us a good Sinestro if they're not going to use Mark Strong, because he's my guy. But let's see what happens. Let's keep going. What else we got here? Oh, this is the one that bothered me the most.
What's that?
And the Authority. You seen it? Do you see the picture of it?
Yeah, I see the picture.
So we had the authority. The authority. They're hinting. They're not saying this is not official. Even though you see Superman here, we don't know that he's going to be. They're just using the image from Action 1036.
Authority scares the hell out of me.
Yes. So this is, and the problem for me is that not the authority itself,
So
but
let me know what your why it spooks you, and I'll let you know why it spooks me.
it spooks me only because you have other stuff that's already out there. You didn't do the Justice League. You haven't done the Justice League successfully. You have the boys who've done their Justice League. You can even say Jupiter's Legacy has had I guess the good guys aren't killers, but you had the boys to do that in the seven. And then you're going to do another sort of evil Justice League type of deal already when you have everyone's doing that. And then they're also the home of the Watchmen. They already got a Watchmen movie and TV series. For me, it's a little too much on the dark side for the heroes, especially like it's almost going 180 on hey, the Justice League didn't work. Let's do this. But remember, well, I guess Jupiter's Legacy had some violence, but those guys were fighting against killing type of deal or in that first episode. So they're trying to, it's more so Justice League, but this gets to the bawdy Tromaville type of heroes where I really kind of worry about this. I think they should have just went straight heroes, but this is in who's that guy in James Gunn's sort of wheelhouse. What do you say?
Everything you said, and I already know that they're probably going to look to their big focus is going to be on Apollo and Midnighter. Those are the two breakout. Those are the two breakout characters from the Authority. So, mm, how can I put this delicately? There's no way to put this delicately. They're going to be the focus, and I don't know if I want to see a series that's just going to be centered around the two of them.
What are you saying? The relationship? I'm sorry, I just had to say that. You don't have to answer. We can move on.
No, I mean their relationship is pretty rough and tumble.
Mhm.
Because it's already the Authority. Okay, then you got the two of them, and it's pretty rough and tumble. Plus, the whole idea is Apollo is a Superman analog, and Midnighter is a Batman analog. I don't know if I just don't know if they can resist the temptation to go that route with it. That's the issue that I would have with it. I mean, there's enough memes. I mean, there's stuff that I came on accidentally. You're looking for something, you see some images, you're like, huh? But there's a contingent of people who want to see that type of stuff. Okay, DC's never going to do it with Superman and Batman, so you got these analogs, and I'm always concerned. It's like, well, how far are you going to take it with these two guys?
Well, that end is going to be what let me go back. What it say? They say a film. Yeah, it's a film. So is it going to be taking down, pastiches of all of pop culture and comic books type of deal, or is it, I don't. What you said was even harder. Having Batman and Superman be kind of the key to this cinematic universe, and you have now DC's doing their own, so that's a bigger issue than anything else of already having comic animation, even with the Guardians of the Universe and the Invincible series. I'm pretty sure that I'm not sure the exact name of those guys, but you have those ones who die in the animation, so it's like it's just so much to in that sort of vein. It's kind of, well, I guess if it works like the way the boys work, then you got a hit. If it goes like Jupiter's Legacy, where they're like, we've kind of seen this before, whereas I think the first episode of Jupiter's Legacy was interesting, having the villain be surprised that he sees himself dead. That was interesting, but I,
Jupiter's Legacy.
hmm?
I know Jupiter's Legacy had a lot of good stuff going for it, and it was executed remarkably poorly. You know, where I said this before, you can't have the premise can't be a question, and you repeatedly answer the question to the point it undermines the existence of your show. You can't. Well, what about the code? Should we follow the code? And everybody's dying who follows the code.
Yes, yeah.
You can't do that. I mean, other than that, I mean, the costuming was great. You had good choices, and you had good choices in actors. You had a storyline that was definitely workable from the comic, but they decided to go this route with it. And like, so what's supposed to happen? You look like a bunch of idiots. And it looks like you're serving people up to die, and that none of these guys are ready for prime time, with the exception of I can't even remember what the character's name was. What was worse is that they had two stories running, and the origin story for the older heroes, that was actually done pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like maybe if they had focused more on that instead of that other thing was just a shambles. And then they had the nerve to end it on a cliffhanger, like okay, like next season. Like, why the hell do you think anybody's coming back for this?
Yeah, just in case all the maybe. Well, that's the thing. I think people were talking about in the same instance, not with that show, but they were talking about it with what was it, the Sandman, saying if it doesn't work out at Netflix, who is it? Neil Gaiman could take it somewhere else. It's like, so if it doesn't do well on this channel, it's a kiss of death. Outside of you getting like UPN, but type of deal where they're like, hey, we'll take what's that thing? We can syndicate it. We'll make cost less money, but we will we'll keep it. There's the luck of having a big budget show like that go somewhere else is tough, and definitely for Jupiter's Legacy, you try to end it and say maybe we could sell it to someone else.
Yeah,
So
maybe
really
they'll
hard sell for any kind of TV
like
show.
and they'll get picked up by UPN and they can go hang out. What is it? What was that show with what was it? Malcolm and Eddie in space? Some nonsense like
Oh, you
that.
talking
Yeah,
about Homeboys in Space? Yeah, yeah, right.
they can come over here and do some nonsense. No, you got to get that right,
Yeah.
especially larger Jupiter's. I mean, Jupiter's Legacy had a shot because this was something that people hadn't seen, and you could have brought people in, but there were elements of it that had been seen already.
Uh huh.
Okay, there were elements of that had been seen already, and so you really had to execute. You had to execute that story much better than was done, and then you'll have something like literally, you have something like The Boys, and those guys are the ratings for The Boys. Those guys beat out the ratings for like Disney and Marvel
Yeah.
in terms of the stuff that they would Star Wars and the Marvel stuff, and simply because they were consistent with the storytelling, where people started to check out on the Marvel and the Disney stuff because they were just, I mean, they were squandered, like I said, they were squandering goodwill. But I don't know if the DC universe can manage Batman and Superman being restarted and trying to get these guys right, foundationally from these new stories, and then you're going to introduce Midnighter and Apollo, and you've got to have writers that can not be self-indulgent with that stuff, because I just don't know if they need the competition in terms of something that salacious.
Well, I got a crazy idea. Do you used to read the Justice League Europe?
uh Not really. Maybe like an issue here and there. Not really.
Well, when they did their big cosmic stories, they came up with these characters called the Extremists, which are basically like Marvel villains in the DC universe, and they were kick ass. Like they really were like the worst kind of villains ever. And I know the DC also has the Elite. They could have done that instead, which is I don't know the Elite that well, but they're not like analogs of the DC characters. They're just kind of rough characters, right? Or maybe from another universe.
The Elite were analogs of the Authority.
Oh God! All right, so they scratch that. So at least having someone, because I didn't want to go back to those characters when Marvel and DC, when DC Marvel did the Squadron Sinister, DC had their own version, which had Thor and they had like a they had all analogs of Marvel, like four of the Marvel characters, so similar because it was a trade off that they did
Yeah,
jokingly and let them do that. But those ones, I don't think. No, I think later they made them visually stronger. But I think the extremists would be a kind of fun thing to kind of play with. But you don't have to use their background because they would kick ass. But then Giffen is kind of goes to the gags because the Justice League Europe. I mean, they were that kick ass that they really couldn't do much to them because they had Magneto as one of the guys, so it was just kind of like they were just right on the edge of defeating them, and then of course they had so much powers, and then he came up with like a with a gag to kind of end it. But anyway, we've covered this. There's a lot of things to worry about, but then at the same time, there's an audience for this type of thing. There are fans out there that are crazy over this. They're not looking at it with the logic and saying, "Just give us the authority." These guys are kick ass. They do everything we want our heroes to do, just go out there and kill and murder and have sex and do all this crazy stuff. And they did it before everybody else. Not really yet Watchmen, but at the same time, it was kind of taking that because it was the original Authority was what, like Stormwatch or something like that from the Jim Lee universe. And at that point, it would just like Warren Ellis was kind of he wasn't necessarily like the Alan Moore and whatnot, but he was kind of just giving you this kind of gritty stuff. So he did have some Alan Moore and Morrison in him, but it was just a little different slant to it, and kind of other people kind of take Miller came later and did his run on there. So it's something that people want, and I don't. It's careful what you wish for type of thing, but and for DC as a whole, careful what you wish for. So Any last words on this before I move on? Because I just covered the end a lot.
I think I listened to it. It sounded like they had actually put some thought into what they wanted to do, and it does address an issue with DC Comics because if Superman has been in development hell since 1986, the DC cinematic universe has been in development hell since Man of Steel, especially since that was never the purpose of that film. And you just, I mean, in business sense, you're leaving a ton of money on the table because you're not executing this to the only other person, or rather, the only other entity that could compete with Marvel in terms of what they did is DC Comics, and DC Comics has not done that. So you're not executing what is pretty much your template that they're following, and so because of that, you don't have anything to fall back on. You haven't garnered any goodwill out of out of viewers. You just have a very vociferous fan base that is there, and it's not enough to continue this particular route. So when he came, so Gunn coming out and saying that, acknowledging it, giving, it's very skeletal for people listening, but giving at least a skeletal version of what they plan to do. He does seem as he almost reminds me of Stan in terms of like being a pitch man,
Yeah.
where he seems very excited about what's going on, seems very into it. So you want to be into it as well. So I thought that was good. And but as always, it comes down to, this will be, I guess, my buzzword of this particular show. It comes down to the execution, and that execution is based on an understanding of these characters, why they're popular, what makes them tick, and bringing that out. If you can do that, then you're fine. My my apprehension about the authority is just like, hey, I know these guys can't resist this stuff, like, because the writers you get coming in, they need to understand, okay, this is Batman and Superman, and these guys, Midnighter and Apollo, are not Batman and Superman, as opposed to going, whoa, wait a second, hey,
Yeah.
these guys are like Batman and Superman. Oh wow, I can do Brokeback Mountain hits world's finest. Like, no, you can't. No, you can't. You can't do that. Okay, you're going to feed on your own stuff. You can't do that sort of thing. If you're going to bring in the authority, do the stories that work, okay, but you've got to resist that temptation because it's going to go counter with the other characters that you have. Then you're going to have some stupid moment where they all meet each other face to face, and then they're just going to make gay jokes.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. The hard part, in I think the one I read was that Art Adams art was just like they're mid battle, and I think who's it? Apollo's struggling, and he's almost close to death, and he doesn't die, and the Midnighter comes over to him and says something, and then Apollo says, "You big queen," and it's just like, all right. Was trying to remind us what's going on because I didn't know the dynamic until I heard that. So,
No,
all right,
you do it right, and you do it right, and it's going to be great. You do it wrong, and they're going to come off like the ambiguously gay duo. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful with it.
yeah.
Got to
So,
be careful, and you have to resist the temptation of doing all this other stuff and just say no. What makes these characters tick? Okay, this is not Batman and Superman from another planet or from another universe. This is Apollo and Midnighter. Make certain that you don't mess. Make certain you don't mess that up. But I have to admit, I am intrigued. And for the first time in a long time with either DC or Marvel, I really am looking forward to seeing what happens. But I got to, I guess the next big thing is casting. So casting will show that they're serious. So, whoever they cast for Superman, if that guy, if he's not at least 6 foot, if he's not at least 6'2", then they're not serious. I would prefer 6'4", but if he's not at least 6'2", or they're not serious at the end of the day. So we'll see how it goes.
okay, let's moving on. We have Paradise Lost, the TV show.
Pass,
Themyscira as
pass,
the Game of Thrones.
yeah, pass. Cash.
So they're gonna have a Game of Thrones type of thing for Wonder Woman. So, well, not I don't know if Wonder Woman's gonna show up. They're trying
Paradise
to figure that out, huh?
Throne. They're gonna do Game of Thrones on Paradise Island, which is supposed to be pretty much in an ideal place. It,
Hmm.
I, again, they've done this one too many times. They'll take some place like Krypton, which is supposed to be this futuristic place. They've solved disease, they've solved war, they've solved crime, they solved it's an idyllic place. And then they always want to turn it into somehow, oh, this is the secret that you didn't know about the Kryptonians. This is what you didn't know about Jor-El. And then they always want to infest these places that are supposed to be like that, so these heroes can come from that place and bring that type of ideal to our world. That's pretty much what's supposed to happen. Those Paradise Island, Smallville, Themis, Krypton. These are supposed to be places that are capable of producing these type of heroes. And they always want us, oh no, there's like a seedy underbelly you didn't know about. So now they want to do Game of Thrones over it? Pass, trash.
Well, it would be similar to like ultimately what you realize with the Themyscira, like in Perez or Byrne, was done right. Ultimately, you have a big war in Themyscira, and then like 2 seconds later, after the war, it's already fixed up because it's not something that's going to last. The Amazons are going to fix their land up. It's going to be back to normal. It's not going to be like a Haiti situation where it's like, oh, it was once a great place, or having the Ozymandias is like, see what I brought. Like, you can't really do that with Paradise Island. You can if you want to, but it's kind of a waste of time to try to turn it into like this sort of thing. They're kind of beyond, you're dealing with the Amazons. They're beyond what they were as, in their original stories. These are the whole setup that Paris has set up is like setting up this whole idyllic land. It also had that beforehand, but at the same time, it was kind of trying to draw from all of the Jason and Argonauts having all this cool stuff, having adventure type of things, not having the sit around and having the politics, and then a dragon comes through and destroys everything. So it's kind
No,
of harder to do it with Themyscira.
part of the problem is that Wonder Woman doesn't have any seminal stories. Okay, she has her origin and some nice runs, but I mean the Perez run, Jimenez run. Uh, I'm trying to remember some of the stuff from the Bronze Age. I think maybe what Roy Thomas did was cool, but otherwise, there's no like she doesn't have any fallback story like a Dark Knight Returns or All Worlds at War. She doesn't really have those stories. So they go in and they don't really have any foundation to work with because I'm thinking, all right, it's Paradise Island. There's all this stuff about Paradise Island in terms of technology. They haven't even done the purple ray yet. So I'm like, there's all this stuff that these guys could look and mine the comics for, but because there's no one big story, they're like, oh, well, why don't we try, we could do Wonder Woman meets Game of Thrones. I'm like, well, that's really not supposed to be happening on this island. But because I think they're taking their marching orders from what they've seen in the films. Hey, let's do that. That's the closest thing that they can come up with, and it's not a really strong story at the end of the day. So I'll pass on that one.
If they're gonna look at something, they might as well look at like at least the first one of 300, saying, all right, that, but they're on a cosmic level, just but at the same time throwing out all of the struggle that's in there. But it's the thing of it is having it, getting to what was fun if you want to get to these type of stories and figure out what they're doing. And there's some stuff. There's a bunch of stuff you could do, but I think going for the Game of Thrones is just it's like the boardroom pitch. It's like, what are you gonna do? So I'm doing uh,
That's exactly what.
Wonder Woman, but it's gonna be like it's gonna be the Amazon but Game of Thrones. Oh, perfect. Yeah, we'll do that tomorrow. Perfect. I got it. And it's like, all right. It's like, this is it's not the same sort of setups. There's like, yeah, there's some buildings in there, but this is a different sort of realm. It's and it's like you got different type of things to play with here. That would be fun to have them go, doing what's going on Paradise Island without Wonder Woman, where you have all the stuff that Perez is set up on there that they can run into and experience, and that would take up a season, and yeah, whatever gods or demons are around to play with. But then just saying the Game of Thrones thing would be like, well, anyway, it's this is also a sad thing to say that this is the news that we have on Wonder Woman and no Wonder Woman actual news. So That's the kind of thing that's set before Diana's arrival. That's what says. The prequel to the Wonder Woman film set before her arrival, so she'd be a kid in this thing, sort of like Gotham. So here we go. What else we got? We got the Brave and Bold film, Batman, and we'll
And
have Damian as his son.
the thing that got me is that he said he really enjoyed Batman, Grant Morrison's run, that Batman and Robin run that Grant Morrison did. And I'm like, do you realize that that Batman was Dick Grayson?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Well, that and it ended with his death. So, and not the greatest death I would imagine. So he did end saying that they were a great team, but the great team doesn't die that way. But here we go. We got having the Uber brat in. I guess we've seen him in animation. We'll see how. No, I guess was he in the Titans show? I know Jason Todd was there, and he was terrible in that. He was
No,
worse than I mean, not terrible, but terrible in the sense that they leave Batman being basically want to be punch women in the face. They're so mad and angry about stuff. Where it was a cathartic thing to people to have to get all of their stuff like Batman is. What do you think Batman after his parents died? He puts on the costume and he's smiling, punching people out. The golden age Batman's having fun because he's doing what he said he was going to do, war on crime, and he's kicking behind. But we're going to see Uber. Well, no, I mean there's a thing built in which I think people love with Damien is that he gets to kick everybody's ass. So that's what people want. They don't, most of the time, at least me, I would be like, well, this character didn't really gain it. Oh no, they grew up with the League of Assassins, so obviously he can kick everyone's ass. It's like, yeah, like Batman mows through those guys all the time, but you
kick
know,
anybody. He can kick anybody's ass except for the guy who killed him.
yeah, there was that. So we have this. They're doing something to get to establish the Batman and Robin type of deal. So and they seem to like the Brave and Bold title. So
Well, that's good because they haven't used it yet. So I think for me, that's just smart business. You got a title out there. It's a cool title. You've never used it, so get that working because you don't need to do Batman and Robin. Uh, I if they can execute on Damian Wayne and still keep him a kid, not age him up to the point he's Chris O'Donnell's age, but he's an actual kid, then I'm for it because I have waited to see Robin come into this whole thing, and their thing is then they don't child endangerment, even though they did kick ass and they got Hit Girl, but the only problem would be the only way they feel like a kid could be there, they have to be some sort of psychopathic assassin. So that's the only way that they think they could actually have them there. But I think if you can do that, then you get a step closer to actually seeing a proper Robin, like in a Dick Grayson, or even a Jason Todd for that matter. So along those lines, if it's executed well, I'm for it.
yeah, so this is going to be means we're getting a new Batman, totally new Batman. So and what else we got here? We
Got
get
to see the.
huh?
I said, and again, you've got to cast it. You can't for if this is going to be DC proper, you can't cast Robert Pattinson for the role. You got to cast somebody who looks like Bruce Wayne and is going to look imposing as Batman. You can't do this Tim Burton, Michael Keaton stuff, or Robert Pattinson. You got to cast the guy needs to be tall, needs to be good looking, needs to look like a Playboy type, and then you got to run it the way it's supposed to. You want to deviate that in your fifth or sixth film, not in the first one.
Well, with Robert Pattinson, I think the way he at the premieres, where he got his hair shaved, he got a nice haircut, like and looks young. Like, why couldn't he just look like that? Why did he have to look like, you
That's
know, that
one.
long mess of a hair to say, hey, he's definitely young. Look at the hair, you know. But moving on, we have was this is this animation? No, this is a film. Supergirl, World of Tomorrow. right? Woman of
Trash,
Tomorrow.
trash.
Oh, how you don't know that this is gonna be trash?
This is
Well,
trash. Red World of Tomorrow. Trash.
oh Lord, many people like this series. So,
That series ended in a man. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
but
Trash.
you said how it ended. Well, the thing of it is, this was lead me to believe. Well, no, it says woman, so she's just gonna be in different locales. So all these things are pretty much spread out throughout DC, so they don't need to really have the kind of neighboring type of thing that Marvel's doing, where we constantly have everyone having Shang-Chi getting signed up for his Avengers duties. Like, hey, wait till you get, we got a handshake and everything. No, we don't have a handshake. He's like, wow, you're not in the Avengers. Get out of here. But anyway, so Cal isn't with this for some reason because it ended badly. But there's some interest in here for this Tom King thing. So last vestige of what Tom King was going to do since we didn't have the new gods.
Like,
All right. Anything
look
else from you?
like,
Huh?
look like, sounds like, smells like trash.
Anyway, okay. What else we
I
got next? What?
warned you.
What's that?
I said, don't be surprised when it's trash, people. I warned you.
Here we go. And then we have Booster Gold TV show. Oh, another sort of play on the hero aspect. Guy who came, borrowed some stuff from the what's it, the Legion or something like that, and comes back to make himself a hero. But do you have Booster? You have Blue Beetle out there. If they keep any of that, they can have him show up. But that was a movie, so. Any thoughts on this one?
I don't know. This looks like a toss up. It really might be good, might not be. That's a straight toss up. That's in the vein of like another Peacemaker show where it's a very unknown quantity in terms of the general public, and they might actually go for it depending on what you give to them. So that is a real big toss up for me.
Well, I mean, with the thing with Peacemaker, kind of just making them what they, making them into a slightly nicer or stupider comedian rather than anything that was in the comic book. So, hey, and connecting them well. All right, I'm getting too far down the weeds. So, Booster Gold, ultimately, I think he had his, I guess, his finest moment later. I mean, he has his most memorable stuff in the what's that thing in the Justice League International, but then they has his more superhero stages when they did the blue and gold stuff. So we'll see this probably be in somewhere in that vein with some humor, with some finding. Well, no, I guess this is definitely right all in the vein of Peacemaker. So I think you were just saying that. So yeah, showboat, but he's more public, so he'll just get some egg on his face when he walks off stage and stuff like that. I don't know. Anyway, what's next? Swamp Thing is back for its third film. Now, the second film had some Alan Moore stuff. They had the love scene. Now it's like say, hey, we don't have to worry about this Vertigo stuff not making it because someone finally decided to do the what's the name, the Sandman. So why don't we do a Vertigo thing and do the Swamp Thing again? We got the money now, even though you had the money for your Swamp Thing series, which is somewhat what I watched. I didn't have a problem with outside of Blue Devil, but I guess the feel to try to get to what they get that feel that was in I guess you could say in the Neil Gaiman Sandman series, try to get the Vertigo into it as much as you can because they did more of a sort of a TV show type of thing, and I think the Sandman tried to follow it exactly, which is kind of sad because when I watched the Sandman series, when we ran into Lucifer, Lucifer wasn't as fun as the one on the TV show, and didn't and was a little too rigid. I guess that's how he was. He was a female playing Lucifer in the Sandman series, so she's a little more rigid in her dealings with with Dream, and not nowhere is fun. I thought get a good line in there at some point. But anyway, what do you think about this? For another Swamp Thing movie, we don't have Agent Barbeau in this. What are you thinking?
I don't know. They seem to have a commitment to trying. They think maybe they can get something going with Swamp Thing. So we'll see if they can get it going with this one. The film didn't really click. They had a season that people liked, but they weren't getting the kickbacks that they needed in terms of the tax, in terms of the taxes. So they said, well, "Look, we're out." So we're seeing it again. So they obviously have. I think this is a big. It's also happening because James Gunn is there, but obviously they think they can get something done with Swamp Thing. Let's see if they get it done this time.
Well, I think it was on HBO Max, or it was on before HBO Max. It was on HBO or something, and
Swamp Thing,
then huh?
Swamp Thing was on wasn't on HBO Max. This is when they had the DC Universe
The
site.
Access thing. Okay, the Access.
Yeah, it was
So they
there.
had it on Access, but it did okay, but not enough when it went to the CW, but not enough to say, hey, it's going to be, or maybe it was on HBO. It did
It
well
never.
enough.
It didn't go to CW. It did
Huh?
one. It didn't go to CW. It did one season.
It went somewhere else besides DC Access, though. And they did report that it did, there was some viewership for it, but it wasn't, it already had the kiss of death. They did move it to another channel.
It wasn't it wasn't the channel where they were at. It was where they were filming, because the other DC stuff was being filmed out in Canada, and
Hmm.
the tax write-offs meant that they could make the shows, and they were making money, on making the shows, regardless of the fact that the ratings weren't necessarily the best.
Hmm.
And for the CW as well, because they had content that was, I mean, it just worked out for everybody. It was money for DC. It was money for Warner Brothers, DC. It was money for the CW. The shows were there, but Swamp Thing was filmed because it was the same problem they had with Black Lightning, because it was filmed someplace else. I'm thinking Atlanta,
Mhm.
and on there they weren't getting the same type of kickback, so they didn't go any further with it after that first season, because they needed ratings on that show. It was the same reason why Black Lightning went to the CW, got 4 seasons out of it. But when I interviewed Chris Williams, I found out he's like, "Oh, we're filming in Atlanta," and as soon as I heard that, that was like, "Oh, okay, so you're getting the same kickbacks that these guys." Well, I shouldn't say kickbacks, but you're not getting the same tax breaks that the other CW shows are getting. So that explained a lot when he let me know that.
Mhm.
All
All
right,
right. Huh?
what's next? So that's it.
You got, I think, what they're calling Elseworlds, which is
We don't got to talk about that. We already know this.
I'm fine though. I'm fine with I don't know why it's called Part Two, but it's kind of they're pushing this into the Elseworld type of thing, which is I don't know. But they had its moments. But then there's still the Joker thing that's happening. That hasn't died. Upcoming Joker musical Joker sequel.
No way is that gonna die. Look how much money that first one made. Hell no.
So some of the stuff that they need to have, but it's not. Well, it depends on a lot of the stuff is 2025, like movie wise. So we might be aged out of this. We might not even be doing the show by the time this thing comes out. So, not this thing, Superman. A lot of things are coming out, and okay. So let's close this off. But a lot of things coming out in 2025. So there's a while before we get to see anything. Any other last words?
Hey, chime in the comment section. What do you think? Do you think DC's on the right path right now? Do you think Gunn is the man with the master plan? Okay, we want to hear from you. Okay, you've heard from us. You know what we think, and we'll be back to let you know more about what we think. Same time, same channel.
Spin a rack.
Out.
Later.